Matthew 27:33, and when they were come to a place called Golgotha, that is to say, a place of a skull. So the explanation comes after the name. Mark, and they bring him to the place Golgotha, which is being interpreted the place of the skull. So pretty much the same, the name and then the explanation of what the name means. Luke has, and there followed him a great, oh that's right, I forgot. His speech, his statement. Like 5 verses later, when they were come to the place which is called Calvary, there they crucified him. John has, they went to the place called the skull, which is in Hebrew Golgotha. So that has the explanation, and then the name in Hebrew, Golgotha. And there they crucified him. First, I have to put Luke. This is definitely before they arrive. So this speech has to come next. And there followed him a great company of people and of women, which also bewailed and lamented him. But Jesus, turning to them, said, Daughters of Jerusalem, weep not for me, but weep for yourselves and for your children. For if they do these things in a green tree, what shall be done in the dry? And there were also 2 other malefactors led with him to be put to death. Luke, when they were come to the place which is called Calvary, there they crucified him. So when they were come to the place, that's similar to Matthew. When they were come to the place called Golgotha. John went forth into a place called the place of a skull, which is called in the Hebrew Golgotha. So when they were come or went. Maybe I could have went forth earlier. He bearing his cross went forth. I could put went forth as Jesus coming out, or as Jesus and Simon, after Simon who was given the cross. They laid on him the cross that he might bear it after Jesus, then from John, and went forth. And they went forth. I could put they. There's probably a they somewhere that I didn't use, or doubled up on, which I didn't have to. Or maybe I could put it now. 2 other malefactors led with him to be put to death. And they went forth. And when they were come to a place called Golgotha. Yeah, I think I'm going to put it now. So since I'm going to have when they were come from Matthew and Luke, the words from Mark, and they bring him to a place called Golgotha, I'm going to have the and they from Mark be the beginning to mix with John, went forth. And they, not just bring him to a place, but went forth into a place. Into a place called the place of a skull, which is called the Hebrew Golgotha. That's really annoying. So into, Luke has, when they were come to the place, which is called Calvary. That's way simpler. I like that. Mark, bring him to the place. So I'm starting with, and when they were come. And when they were come. That's Matthew and Luke. To a place. Luke. To the place, which is called Calvary. John has into a place. Mark and Luke agree to the. Matthew and John are pretty close to a, or into a. Luke doesn't have the interpretation. Matthew and Mark do, but they both start with the official name, Golgotha. And that's the Hebrew as explained in John. And then what's to do with Luke, where it says, which is called Calvary? I'll start with Calvary, then from Mark, being interpreted, the place of the skull. And I'll combine that with Matthew. Instead of that is to say, I'll use being interpreted. Then I'll end with John, which is called in the Hebrew Golgotha. I think I'm going to go to instead of into from John. So Matthew, Mark, Luke, to. They knew where they were going, so I'm not just going to say a place called Calvary. I'm going to say the place. So not John, not Matthew. Mark and Luke, the. All four place. I will use called here from John, but not the place, because those are in italics. And of a skull, I'll save for the interpretation. So called John, called Luke, not Mark, called Matthew. So Matthew, Luke, John, called, and I'm going to start with Luke, Calvary. Matthew has Golgotha, that is to say, a place of a skull. Mark has Golgotha, which is being interpreted, the place of a skull. John has just of a skull, which is called in the Hebrew Golgotha. So the interpretation of a skull, and then finished with John, which is called in the Hebrew Golgotha. Oh wait, no, I can't do that, because that would be an interpretation of Calvary, as if it means of a skull. Okay, I'm not going to do what I was thinking. I'm not going to save the last statement from John for last, which is called in the Hebrew Golgotha. I'm going to have Calvary, then I'm going to go to John, which is in the Hebrew Golgotha, being interpreted from Mark, the place of a skull.